Hello, YouTube! Welcome to part 3 of my build of the amazing Star Destroyer bridge from Charveys3D. I will provide links to the first two videos in the description box below. In this video, I will show you how to remove the supports from your prints, how to smooth out your overhangs, how to glue everything together, and how to fix your seams between the pieces. So now it's time to remove the supports. I like to use a tool like this, pliers that are bent like this, to just pull them off. It gives me lots of leverage, so you got that whole piece there. It's coming out fairly clean. You wouldn't know that from how hard I'm pulling. Now, for cleanup, on the bigger edges, if there's anything, I like to use a file. Because I can get a nice flat edge that way. I'll use an X-Acto knife to cut away little pieces that are stuck from the tree supports. You can use sandpaper to clean up your edges. There's a burr there. That's going to be a glued edge, so it needs to be perfect. You can fold it in half and get in, there's an edge here. Pretty good. And when you get stringing, there's pieces of stringing in some of this. You can use a lighter, and as long as you don't hold it on there too long, it won't melt the plastic, but it will melt all your strings off and clean up your edges. See, there's no carbon scoring or anything, but I'm just getting all the little burrs off. You can also use, but you have to be careful. This is a Dremel tool that's battery powered with sanding edges. For a larger piece, you could use this to get your edges and burrs off, but you need to be careful because it'll dig deep. I don't need that for this one. And this is a common one, is clippers. But again, you see, I didn't really need to use these are standard clippers that a lot of 3D printers use. I prefer this to get a real grab. I grab and pull rather than clip for the supports in particular, because it's easier for me. On the two pieces like this for the windows, I have some stringing. See, under there and under there for the overhangs. And I don't like it, so I'm going to fix that with some wood filler. So what you can do, overhangs are hard to print cleanly. going to take some wood filler, and I sanded it down. I sanded this as best I could and squared up the edges. And then you take some wood filler, and I'm going to rub it in all the grooves. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we can sand that later. We'll sand it flat. So we'll put on one coat, we'll let it dry, we'll sand it and see if we need another. Like that. So it's been about 4 hours. Let's see how we did. So this is 220 grit fine sandpaper. And we're just going to sand down the wood filler and see if it got into all the right corners. I think that's pretty good. You can see that it went into the grooves and the upper edges are coming through. So let's do this other one. Getting the edges very carefully. We want this to be invisible when it's painted. Yeah, that's good. We don't even need another layer. Now it's time to glue the bigger pieces together, and we'll do that 2 at a time. To do that, we'll use clear Gorilla Glue. And then on a smooth, flat surface, we'll stick the 2 of them together, and then we have our best chance of lining them up and minimizing the seam as much as possible. And then we'll let it thoroughly dry, and then we'll start doing some of the other pieces. We'll keep adding one more piece at a time until it's all complete. Now I need to work on all the seam lines between the bigger pieces. So again, I'm going to use Gorilla Wood Filler. I'm going to use a spatula because I'm going to try and push it into the grooves. So here's what it looks like with all the seams done, the main seams and edges, and we'll let that dry and sand it down a bit and see what we get. Here we can see the first coat is dry and it's pretty smooth and it's looking good. I'm going to need another coat, but when I sand it down, so I've already sanded it, but what's happening is all of these areas are going to be very smooth when I paint this, but the areas in between are going to be rough. And especially here you can see some gritting just based on the way the print came out. So what I'm going to do is, we do this in drywall too. It's very similar to mudding and taping drywall joints. But what I'm going to do is we'll do a skim coat over the entire surface. So I've continued to work on the seams to try and cover them up and even them out, because sometimes one is higher than the other. So I'm trying to even them out. And then they've been sanded, and I did the skim coat over this whole piece here, and I started doing it here, and I'm realizing that it's working well, but I want it to be smooth because it will be a solid metal floor on a Star Destroyer. But as you can see, there's the grids in the print surface. So what I've been doing, like here and here, is a very thin layer that gets into the grooves, and then when I sand it, even though you can still see the plastic through, it's not as solid as this. When I paint it, it's going to be flat because it's just inside the grooves and sanded right down. So what I'm going to do is the rest of these panels, and I found an easier way to do it than using the spatula, is I just take some wood filler, and I put it on some cardboard. And I pipette some water onto it to thin it out. And then I use a large paintbrush, or somewhat large, and I mix in the water with the wood filler. Not too much, because I don't want it to be too watery, but I need it to be enough. And then I can just paint over it. And what will happen is a very light coat of wood filler will be going into all those little grooves. And then I just need to sand it after to flatten it out. And this was a lot easier than taking the spatula like I was doing and putting it over the whole surface and trying to get it in. It's easier to paint it on. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to paint over all the flat areas like this. Not too thick, but just enough to get into all those little grooves. And that's going to smooth out my spaceship floor. And it'll be nice. It'll be like a nice solid sheet of metal. So I'm just going to keep going. I'll do all the top surfaces. Might do a little bit over here just to make it perfect. We'll let it dry and sand it and see how it looks. At this point, all the seams are finished. They've all been sanded. The skim coats have all been done. And now I'm going to glue the top layer on, and then we'll do those seams, and then that'll be it. So I didn't do the top because it allowed me more extra space so that I could work on the seams. So we'll start, again, one piece at a time with some clear Gorilla Glue. Just a couple of dots, not too much because I don't want it oozing out. So we'll let that dry, then we'll put the remaining 3 pieces one at a time, same process, and see how it looks. Here it is, everything is finished. I've put all the plaster on the seams, I've sanded it and cleaned it. The white part is, I tried to use polyfilla as an experiment. I wanted to see how it would work on some of the seams that were thicker, that I was starting to get some grain and bubbles in the wood filler. So that's what the white are, and it's very smooth. So that worked well. So I would finish it, I sanded it with sandpaper. I used a shop vac to clean up all the dust. I used a Swiffer duster to further get all the dust. This does a great job of picking it up. Also, as a tip, I use a dentist pick, and this way I was able to get the pieces of wood filler and polyfilla that are stuck in the corners and crevices, so you can pick them out like that. And another trick you can do is a sponge that's damp, not wet, but just damp. And then you can use that on all these edges of where it's been a bit of overspill. You can use this to kind of clean up the plaster and the wood filler and get it out of there. See, it's actually dissolving it in the thinner layers and getting rid of it. Thank you for watching my video on how to remove supports, smooth overhangs, glue everything together, and fix your seams. If you have any other suggestions or ideas, please drop a comment below. Please also check out the other videos in this series of my Star Destroyer bridge build, which are linked below in the description.